Hey guys, Thomas Joseph here, and today I'm really excited to share with you a Mussel 101. Now, mussels, you can buy them at your supermarket. They're readily available these days, or your fishmonger if you're so lucky. I'm gonna share with you how to buy them, how to store them when you get them home, how to clean them, and then a really simple way to cook them. In front of me here, I have two different types of mussels that you might find stateside. That is the Atlantic blue mussel. It has kind of a black appearance here, but there is a slight blue tinge, blue almost like purpley tinge to the shell. And then there is this Pacific version, which is called the New Zealand green-lipped mussel. If you find these in your supermarket and you're able to get them, the method of preparation is really the same. So there's really no difference in cooking these mussels. They're just a different variety. Now, these are only two of the many varieties that exist. These are marine mussels, so they're grown in salt water. And in talking about harvesting or growing mussels, the majority of mussels out there in the marketplace today are farm-raised. And usually we kind of frown at that phrase of farm-raised seafood, but what's really great about farm-raised mussels is that they're good for the environment. So when I say farm-raised, I don't mean they're kind of grown in pens or anything like that, but they're actually cultivated on these long lines that kind of string up from the bottom of the ocean and float up to the top of the water. So that's where these mussels are grown. Now, mussels are actually filter feeders, so that means that they filter out the waters and clean up the environment. So farmed mussels are actually really a great thing, and you should pick them up whenever you can find them because they do make a really quick dinner as well. So when you're at your supermarket or your fishmongers, if you can buy mussels by the piece, you could certainly try to do that. Most often they're sold in netted bunches, so already by the pound or the 2-pound batch. If you do have the opportunity to buy them by themselves, you want to look for mussels that are nice and moist, that the shells aren't dried out. You want to make sure that they're not too heavy for their size. If they're too heavy, that means that they might have silt or dirt in the inside of the mussel. Always, with shellfish, with fish, give it a good smell. It shouldn't smell fishy at all. These actually smell like sweet seawater, and that's really what you're looking for. Now, sometimes mussels have a little bit of dirt or silt or even some barnacles that might grow on the shell. And so what you need to do when you get them home is give them a good scrub. So I recommend you get them home, you take them out of the netted bag that they're in, you give them a good scrub with a stiff bristled brush, and then you want to put them into a container. If you're gonna store them for later in the day or for the next day, put them into a container or colander, so something that's perforated, set over a bowl, and you want to put ice over the top of them. And you don't want to wrap these in plastic wrap or cut off any air supply because these are living when you buy them, and if you cut off the air supply, the mussels are going to die. So give them a good scrub. And then, when you're ready to cook the mussels, the one thing that you want to do is remove the beard. So the beard is actually this little piece. It almost looks like seaweed or something like that that comes out of the shell. And this is actually the part of the mussel that adheres to whether it's a rock or if it's one of those tethered lines for farmed mussels. So what you need to do is remove this. But in removing it, what you're actually doing is killing the mussels. So you want to make sure that you do this right before you're cooking it, because you don't want to do this and then store them for a day or two. And it's really easy to pull off of the mussel, and that's really how you clean a mussel. It's really, really simple, guys, so don't be intimidated by this process at all. So again, just give them a good brush with a stiff bristled brush. You're going to gently pull off the beard here, and then you're ready to cook the mussels. And one other great thing about farmed mussels is since they're grown in water on lines and they're not wild on rocks or on a pier or anything like that or near the dirt, they're less likely to have grit in them. So it's a really great thing because then you won't get any gritty mussels. So for the recipe that I'm using today, super simple way to prepare mussels. What I'm gonna do in a nice large straight-sided skillet I have here, I'm gonna add 2 cups of white wine. So whatever your favorite white wine is, you could use it here. Now, the reason I'm using such a large, wide pan is because we want the mussels to cook evenly. So if you're using a tall, narrow pot, which actually a lot of recipes say when you're making mussels to use like a Dutch oven or a deep pot, unfortunately what's gonna happen is the heat source is on the bottom, right? So all of the mussels on the bottom are gonna get cooked while the ones on top aren't really cooking at the same rate. So you might get some overcooked mussels. Having a shallow pan will really help here because it will help them cook evenly and all the mussels will be done at the same time. Now to this white wine here, I'm going to add 4 cloves of chopped garlic, 4 shallots that have been diced up, a heaping half teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. And you really just want this to kind of come together. You want the wine to start steaming. You want the garlic and shallot to kind of infuse into this white wine. And this will then ultimately become our wonderful broth that we'll serve with our mussels. Now, in total for this recipe, for this quantity of wine and shallot, you need 4 pounds of cleaned mussels, and that's what I have here. So this mixture here has to simmer for a few minutes so that the wonderful aromatics, the shallot and the garlic, infuse into the wine before we add in our mussels. So it's been about 5 minutes here, and now it's time to add the mussels. I'm gonna increase the heat to high now because I wanna cook these quickly. And so I'm just gonna add in my mussels, try to avoid the ice here. We don't wanna add any extra moisture here because we want a really rich, flavorful broth. We don't want to dilute it down with any ice cubes. Again, try to situate your mussels in a nice even layer so they cook evenly. And I'm going to cook these mussels covered, and they're basically going to steam and open up, and that should take anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes. But it really ultimately depends on the size of the mussels. So if you have little smaller mussels, which are totally fine, younger mussels, they might take a little less time, but if you have big guys, they might take a little bit longer. So I have all the mussels in. I'm gonna cover this. Again, it's high heat for about 5 to 6 minutes, depending on the size of the mussels. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes, and look at this, you guys. Our lovely mussels are open. They're nice and plump. And to this, I'm gonna add a little bit of butter. And when I say a little bit of butter, I mean 6 tablespoons of butter. Now, this is a big batch of mussels, so you can kind of gild the lily here with this butter, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna melt into the broth, and it's gonna give a really nice richness to the broth. So just let this kind of melt in, stir up the mussels, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of fresh herb to brighten this up. So this is a mixture of chopped parsley, chervil, and some basil. And you could really mix this up. You could add a little bit of chive, you could add tarragon if you would like. And also, you know what would be really fantastic here? If you're a big fan of spice, you could add a little bit of red pepper flakes or some sort of chili to this. Some black pepper would be really nice here as well. So once you get this stirred up and the butter is nice and melted, you can get these mussels into a giant serving bowl, bring this right to the table, and have everybody dig in. Serve it with this broth, of course, and some nice crusty bread, and you have a really simple meal, actually. This certainly could be a meal with a nice green salad, or it could be a really great first course. Now, I hope I've encouraged you to go out, find mussels at your supermarket or at your local fish market. Remember those tricks and tips in buying, storing, and cleaning mussels. And if you can find those Pacific green mussels, give them a try. Now, if you guys have any kitchen conundrums, baking conundrums, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us using the hashtag Kitchen Conundrums, and we will answer your questions, guys. Enjoy. And as always, guys, click like and subscribe.